teachings like this, like the whole day, when there's a break, lunch break, you just offer the short mandala, and then again when it starts, just the mandala.
So can we read the inner mandala?
Just the outer mandala. This is usually how it's done. No.
Page 15.
Maybe you explain why. Yeah, so this is, because maybe you're not so familiar with it, this is usually how it is done. When the teaching continues, then for the lunch break, you just offer the short mantra. You don't really do dedication and all this. I mean, you can. And then when it starts again, also you offer the mantra like quite short. Like Sashi, Birkin to the
Okay. So page 15, the outer mandala. אדמה זו המשוחה בקטורת ועטורה פרחים, העדויה בהר מרו, בארבע היבשות, בשמש ובירח. העלה בדמיוני כעולם הבודה והגישה כמנחה, וכל היצורים הנודדים יהונו בעולם טהור זה. אידם גורו רטנה מנדלה כמירייתייני.
I need to warn you, it's getting harder. No chocolate.
Oh, we still have lots of stuff. Did they go up?
All right, so the conceptual mind, and I talk about, I've just been given a question. Actually, it's not so much a question, it's like a correct statement, and then help. It's like very nice explanation, and then help. So, anyway, but I talk about this. Maybe there is some misunderstanding. Maybe I've stressed something too much, so it makes it sound as if actually there's nothing out there, which I didn't intend to say, and it's not the intention actually. Of course, the external world exists. Of course, there's the external world, there's colors, there's shapes, except that it doesn't exist independent of the mind. So that is what I was trying to stress, but I'll talk about it more when we have more questions. Okay. But getting back to the conceptual mind, so the way I explained it is so important to understand this. That it's because of our labeling, because of our designating the world, that therefore our conceptual mind has those images of phenomena, which is fine. It's fine. I mean, it's the only way we can get at things. And the only problem lies at the fact that we then think, oh, this is how they really exist. It's got nothing to do with me. This is what is reality. If I think this person is not a good person, well, then that's the case. They're not a good person. He or she is wrong, I'm right. And it's a problem. Okay. But basically from the point of view of Dharma practice, to always bring it back to the context of Dharma practice, conceptual minds are so extremely important because they allow us to perceive things that are not directly obvious to us. So in the reading, it basically talks about, phenomena can be divided into three categories. It can be divided, and this is, many of you know that, but I thought still to mention it. Phenomena are either manifest or hidden, or obvious or non-obvious. In the sense that either we can perceive them easily, no problem, we can perceive the existence of something, or it's not directly obvious to us, so we cannot, even if someone tells us about it, we don't perceive it. So of course there's lots of scientific objects that scientists have come to understand that are not obvious to us, which we still can, through some detour, through some analysis, we can come to understand. So those are hidden phenomena. And in Buddhism they're described, these phenomena play of great importance. Actually, in fact, anything that needs to be understood is something that is slightly hidden. I mean, there are also some extremely hidden. So I should say hidden phenomena or non-obvious phenomena can be divided into slightly hidden and extremely hidden. But the good news is the extremely hidden ones we're not even worried about, we're not even concerned about. So there are some phenomena that right now, with the mind we have right now, no way we can understand them. An example? The subtle working of karma, yeah. I mean, just to say karma itself, to be most precise, and we can understand the coarse working of karma, but the really subtle features of like, where does that mole come from? What are exactly the causes and conditions that cause this mole? I mean, it's beyond our mind right now. So that's just something that only a Buddha could perceive. Anyway, who cares? Right? I mean, where does this mole come from? I mean, who cares? But basically, there are other phenomena which are only slightly hidden. So, the lack of, what do they call it? Inherent, true, objective existence from its own side. That is only slightly hidden. Good news. I mean, it's possible to perceive it via the mind we have right now. We can train that mind and come to an understanding of emptiness. What's called emptiness? It's called emptiness because it's empty of inherent existence, right? Then there's other phenomena, of course, such as subtle impermanence. We understand impermanence. We understand gross impermanence. We understand a person dies. Not that we take it to mind and then think about it, but it's not that hard to understand that all of us die. But the subtle change, moment by moment, that's what's really difficult. And that is understood only in dependence on what's called inference. Inferentially, inferring. Inferring that something is so and so by depending on a reason. It will be explained a little bit down. But here I've mentioned it already, that phenomena that are slightly hidden, such as emptiness, the suffering nature of our existence. I mean, I'm not saying the suffering nature that is most obvious, such as the suffering of a headache. No, everyone understands that. But that even our body and mind right now has the potential to create suffering at any time. And therefore, it is in the nature of suffering, in the nature of problems. Anyway, these are things that are not directly obvious to us. And thus we rely on a conceptual mind that takes reasons, correct reasons, and on the basis of that comes to an understanding. Anyway, if I leave it at that for now, because that's not what I want to explain, but it'll be explained further down when we come to what's called inferential minds. But basically, these phenomena all depend on conceptual mind. So that's why conceptual mind is so important. Moreover, for meditation, we need conceptual minds. Right now, when we meditate, the meditation we did this morning, very good example of a conceptual mind. Okay, so we had the sense perception, whichever sense perception you chose, whether it was the sound or the smell. And then you basically take that sense perception and you focus the conceptual mind on that sense perception. It becomes the object of the conceptual mind. And you allow the conceptual mind only to take on that object and nothing else. Which, of course, you may have noticed, doesn't work for very long, because then we start thinking about, what was that sound? Oh, was it a dog? Children? Or whatever was your object. So basically we then start reflecting, but the idea is to just quieten the conceptual mind by taking an object, such as an external mind, and come to understand, the working of the sense consciousness by just observing, but moreover to quietening down the conceptual mind, the mental consciousness, which is conceptual. So that's one of the main functions of Buddhist practice. I mean, there's two functions basically: to understand a phenomenon, become familiar with a certain way of thinking, and to quieten the mind. So this falls into the category of quietening the mind. And basically we need both, because with a very distracted mind, it's very hard to get to think in a different way. We're just too distracted with the other phenomena. But so basically, for shamatha meditation, for the meditation what we call stabilizing meditation. For stabilizing meditation, it's the conceptual mind that we need. And so what does the conceptual mind does, actually? How does it really work? How it works is, or the way it works is that we take an image, we try to conjure up a generic image or a mental image of whatever it is we choose to focus on. So if it's the breath, the movement of the breath, it is basically the object of the body consciousness that perceives the breath, then that, a generic image of that appears to the mental consciousness. And that's what we focus on. And try not to be distracted by anything else. And the same for the meditation that Рита introduced today. Again, taking maybe a sound or a smell or the sensation on your feet, whichever sensation you chose. You conjure up an image of that and focus on it with the conceptual mind. So you quiet it down, you put the mind, as Рита put it, you put it to sleep in the sense that's all it does. It's not active in any other way. Right? It's not active doing this, thinking ahead and planning. So it's just focusing on that. It's a conceptual mind. It's hard to just discriminate. Is it which one is, where does the sense consciousness stop and the mental consciousness start? So here we can only rely on explanation for the time being until we get, of course, a first-hand experience. Oh, this is that. We can quieten down the mind to a degree where you know exactly each moment. You're totally aware of the beginning of one mind and the stopping of another mind. Anyway, the idea is nevertheless first to quietening down the mind by relying on conceptual consciousness. So, and also if you were to concentrate on the body of a Buddha, that's another favorite object that is used to generate more concentration. And it depends on who someone is. If someone has great faith in the Buddha, then faith in the Buddhist context, and this will be explained a little bit further, I keep saying that, but it will be explained. Faith, there's different types of faith. But faith is also associated with joy, the feeling of joy. So if concentrating on the Buddha, it conjures up joy. We don't want to do anything else. So it's just a clever psychological way to keep with the object, because it brings some faith in us. Right? It's a non-destructive. It's not like joy seeing the person we're attached to. Then it's harder. But it's just a pure kind of feeling towards someone, an admiration, a devotion, a faith, and then it's easier to keep the mind on that. By conjuring up that mental image of the body of the Buddha. Anyway, conceptual mind does that. And then the method side of Buddhism. I'm sure you're all aware, just to mention it again. Buddhism can basically be divided into a rational kind of aspect and an emotional aspect. I mean, our entire life can be divided into rational and emotional. Unfortunately, it's kind of a disruptive emotional and disruptive irrational. We have irrational ideas about phenomena. We use our wisdom and it becomes an afflictive wisdom. Actually, the Tibetan word is afflictive wisdom. It's that function that the mind performs to understand something, to get at something, to have an understanding of something. And because its object doesn't exist, as Venerable Рита explained with this book by, it depends on this book by Gelam Rinpa, it's like a wrong understanding. So we use that faculty, that correct faculty, and we just use it in the wrong way. We wrongly get at something. So therefore it's called afflictive wisdom. And then we have afflictive emotions, right? Emotions such as, which have the potential to become love, compassion, kindness. Well, in our case, because they're diluted, they become anger, attachment, ignorance, and so forth. So it's just a matter of turning those around. What we do with Buddhist practice is using the afflictive emotions, these emotional states of wanting this, wishing that. I mean, what is it? Anger, attachment. It's just wishing for something, wishing to harm someone, wishing to not be separated from a person. We now turn those around to make those wishful minds turn them into love, compassion, wishing someone to be happy, wishing someone to be free from suffering. That is the method side. And then you have the wisdom side, where you take the afflictive wisdom, and replace the objects. Instead of inherent existence, it's the lack of inherent existence. So the function of the mind is the same, but the object changes. Okay. Anyway, we use that analytical ability of our mind. Our mind uses reasons all the time. We don't do anything without a reason. We don't even get angry without a reason. We say so, but actually there's always a reason. It may be totally wrong, but nevertheless it's a reason. So we do things for a reason, and now we replace the wrong reasons with reasons that accord with reality, and the result are productive minds. So There are two aspects, therefore. There's the emotional side, that is the method, and then there's the rational side, that is wisdom. Okay? So the ability we have already, we now use that potential we have, that ability of the mind, and set it right. So all the emotional minds, love, compassion, generosity, patience, kindness, loving kindness, all the different states that are constructive, they're conceptual minds. They're not direct, they're always conceptual. They're never non-conceptual until one becomes a Buddha. So only a Buddha has unconceptual, non-conceptual love, compassion, and so forth. But for us, it's always that. So all the way until just before one becomes a Buddha, one has very precious conceptual minds. Bodhicitta, totally conceptual. So it's good. It's not like, okay, eventually we overcome it. It's like a raft. Once you get to the island, you need to let go of the raft. But as long as we're not on the island, we better not get rid of the raft. So only a Buddha can say, all right, that's it, don't need it anymore. But until enlightenment, until the last moment of being a non-Buddha, one needs a conceptual mind. So all the method minds, all the methods, all the minds that are part of the category of method, all the emotional states, they are conceptual. And then with the wisdom, you have some that are conceptual and some that are direct perceivers. Okay. So this is very briefly. You can really categorize all of the Buddhist, the minds that we need to develop, that we need to generate. These different states called path, because they take us somewhere. Well, all these are either conceptual or non-conceptual. Most of them are conceptual. But there's also non-conceptual ones. Oh, and I should mention also, so from the positive side, all these conceptual ones, they're the ones that take us, they're the rafts that take us towards, enlightenment, liberation or enlightenment. So even someone who's liberated, who's not enlightened, and I explained a little bit the difference between the two, I'm sure you know already, but just briefly, all those who are liberated still have plenty of conceptual minds. But from a negative perspective, all our negativities are conceptual. There's no anger that is a sense consciousness. Sense consciousnesses cannot be non-virtuous. They're only neutral. They're just our looking glass into the world, if you like. They allow us to get in touch with phenomena, and then anything that goes wrong is on the mental level, on the mental consciousness level, on the conceptual level. So anger, attachment, desire, ignorance, they're all conceptual. So it's pretty straightforward. But then there's also mental consciousnesses that are non-conceptual. There are non-conceptual ones. They're more rare, but still very important to understand. So if you look at the handout, so there's non-conceptual consciousnesses, and there's two of them. I divided them into two. So one are dream consciousnesses that are non-conceptual. I mentioned those. And the other ones are yogic direct perceivers. So if you've studied Lorik before, if you studied the mind before, you study what is called self-knowers. No, not according to the Prasangika school. No self-knowers. So don't need to worry about those. I said I'd teach it from the Prasangika school, so don't need to start with them. Then there's called mental direct perceiver, indicator on this occasion. Forget about those. No one is concerned. The Prasangika school is not concerned with those. So unless you want to study the other school's assertions regarding the mind, well, yeah, you need to study that, but here it's not necessary. It becomes a little easier. And why there's no self-knowers, it'll be explained in a little while. It's clear there's an assertion that only the Prasangika has, and therefore self-knowers are not important. In other words, actually the lower schools don't assert something that is actually really important. But because they don't assert this, they have to assert self-knowers. They have to kind of make up this idea of there's a mind that knows itself. But the Prasangika, no, they don't have that. They have a very good way of explaining, what will be explained a little bit down. Okay, so therefore it's very straightforward. A mental consciousness that directly perceives. So just to remind you, we talked about sense consciousnesses and mental consciousnesses. Sense consciousnesses are always non-conceptual, very straightforward. Mental consciousnesses can be conceptual, in fact the majority is, but there's some that are non-conceptual. I'm saying some because as ordinary beings, only certain dream consciousnesses are non-conceptual. And then the other ones, yogic direct perceivers, well, one has to reach a certain level. It's not easy to get to those yogic direct perceivers.
Be more specific when you speak about this, give examples.
Yes, I will explain this now. The yogic direct perceivers. So the example, you mean the yogic direct perceivers, right?
And also the dream consciousness, everything you mentioned.
So the dream consciousness. Well, honestly, I find that difficult because I only know there's a quote in the scriptures that explains they exist. But what dream consciousness exactly? I'm not a good dreamer, actually. I'm not a lucid dreamer. I don't remember my dreams. So it's probably better to talk to a person who remembers their dreams most of the time and can maybe differentiate between the clarity. Remember this morning we did the test of the chocolate and the thinking about the chocolate? Could do that now, at least the thinking we can do. So thinking about the chocolate is never as clear as the actual experience. But according to the explanation that is given when we talk about direct, non-conceptual dream consciousnesses, I guess it's like you eat the chocolate. You probably wake up and go, right? It's like, it's so real.
So you refer to more lucid dreams or dreams that where you have awareness while dreaming?
No, actually, lucid dreams, according to what I understand, is dreams in which you're aware that you're dreaming and you can change things around.
Yes,
But
you're not referring to that.
Pardon?
You're not referring to that.
No, I'm just saying if you have lucid dreams, you definitely remember them. I just mean I'm talking about dreams that are very clear. And then you can later on say, oh, that was a direct perceiver dream. That was a non-conceptual dream. And that was a conceptual one. But because I don't know, I don't remember my dreams in the first place, I can never say, was it conceptual or non-conceptual? But I guess the difference between the two is one is as clear as if it really happened. I mean, maybe the ones that make us wake up sweating, or we're still running. You know, sometimes animals are actually running. Maybe they're so clear, they're non-conceptual, and therefore their entire body moves. But I don't know. I don't know. Right? So this we can just check your dreams and see which one is clear and which one is less clear.
So not all dreams are non-conceptual. So
Not all dreams are non-conceptual. No. There's some dreams that are very hazy. I mean, again, I don't really remember. But the ones I remember often are just hazy, kind of black and white, right? Black and white kind of dreams. The objects don't appear as clearly. Of course, nightmares sometimes are very vivid. Lots of colors. Yeah. Anyway, so it's something to be investigated. The Amatsongkhapa, I don't think is considered it important because who cares about dreams? I mean, from a Buddhist perspective, they're not terribly important. They're important once we reach a certain level, but terribly unreliable as long as we don't. I mean, there could be a prophecy, but they could not. We just don't know. So they're not important. They're not considered important. Thus, that there's no explanation, really. Okay? And I only found this one quote, and everyone asserts this. My teachers used to accept this, but they never explained it. Something we need to use our own experience and see. This is conceptual, this is non-conceptual. And most important is the yogic direct perceiver. So, with the manifest objects, as I said previously, we start with a direct perception, and then it becomes conceptual. Right? Today, the meditation, such a beautiful meditation. On top of that, such a good example where we directly perceive and then conceptually focus on it. And then if we're not careful, we go on and think about it and get carried away by whatever is our object. So there was first a direct perception, then conceptual. Now with hidden phenomena, slightly hidden phenomena, it's the other way around. First we have a conceptual understanding, and then we turn that into a direct perception. And that's a challenge. And that direct perception is called a yogic direct perception. And it's so hard to get there. It's so hard to get there. And at this level right now, I think I can say with confidence, I'm so far away from this. But you may wonder, why does Buddhism talk oftentimes when we learn about this, bring in these really difficult things that are so beyond us? I'm always reminded of this saying, act locally, think globally. Is that the right saying? Yeah. Right? So it's like, yeah, you are where you are right now. That's where you actually act. but your vision is much vaster. So from Buddhism, from a Buddhist point of view, it's similar. We have to start where we are. We cannot jump any steps. I mean, if we're not ready for Tantra, emptiness, right? I mean, we're not. So we need to take the steps that we are ready to take, and without taking any jumps, so we fall down. However, to have the whole picture in mind, to have that entire where it actually takes us, helps us to not go astray. That's why if you listen to His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings, I can guarantee you that His Holiness will explain one way or another. The focus may be the Four Mindfulnesses, the Four Noble Truths. It may be anything kind of the mind, psychology. It may be anything where it just picks one topic. But somehow His Holiness brings the entire path all the way to enlightenment in. So you can see how it all connects and where you actually eventually go. So that's the point of anything. So the practice, the studies we do, there's so much study on the different path. So it's kind of ridiculous. It's like I'm trying to travel to, let's say, Moscow, some faraway place. I haven't even started. I'm just kind of packing my things. And still I know exactly how to get there. But at least I packed the right things. Because I know where I'm going. I'm kind of prepared. Right? Winter clothes, plus Moscow, okay, better get, right? Know what I need. So there's a lot of emphasis, and this may sound contradictory, but one of my teachers, an amazing practitioner, he stressed this a lot. He said, Buddhist practice is very important so you can stand on your own feet. It may sound like, isn't that all about the Lama and relying on the teacher? But it's actually not like that. I think in the West we don't have a correct understanding of what it means to rely on a teacher. It's kind of like, Lama, come on, take me along. I'll just rest and you take me there. No way. We need a teacher, but we don't need to be physically close to the teacher. Not even that. Okay? Tantric practice, all right, there's a difference here, but we're not even talking about Tantra because we're still packing. We're not, on the way, basically close to enlightenment or closer. I mean, we do some Tantric practice, but it's not the real deal. So therefore, we need to become more independent. So my teacher, he used to say that the reason we do all these studies is we don't have to run to a teacher all the time and ask. We know the answers, we know where we're going. We get more of an independence there, more of a self-confidence. Okay, so you have the answers. You still go to your teacher, you still seek their advice, but a lot of the questions you're able to answer yourself. So it's like you stand on your own feet, and you're not being, if you meet a teacher who's taking you the wrong way, well, you recognize that. It's much easier to recognize that. So there's this independence. So Tibetans are all about independence. I mean, not in the political sense. I mean, really, it's all about that. I mean, that too. But I mean, just in the spiritual sense. So I remember my teacher, we invited him once for some question and answers. Geshe Tupten Pesang. If you ever have a chance to get teaching from him, he is amazing. Geshe Tupten Pesang. People don't know his name. His Holiness always praises him. His Holiness always calls him to do the review sessions after initiation, after teachings in Dharamsala. But people don't know him. He's so humble. He just stays in his room the whole time. He's always in meditation. He has the most amazing mind. Anyway, never mind. But Geshe Tupten Pesang, he's the one, and he talks about this. I remember we invited him once to the party class, and he said, that's why we study. Even though right now this is totally beyond us, but we need to know. We need to know which direction we're going. So this is what I want to do with you today. I want to introduce you to a yogic direct perceiver, even though we may be, I'm totally so far from anything like a yogic direct perceiver, because I haven't even taken the first step to get there. But still, understanding, then everything else makes sense. Okay, so let's go into that. So what is a yogic direct perceiver? So now please bear with me, because it becomes a little complicated, but not impossible to understand. A yogic direct perceiver can only arise in someone who has entered the Hinayana or Mahayana path. I'm going to do a little drawing in a while to explain the difference between the two on the basis of a chart. It's a Swiss chart. You'll see why. They're direct perceivers, and they're called yogic direct perceiver because the Tibetan word for yoga, or no, actually the Sanskrit word yoga, is translated into Tibetan as the word training. Yoga actually just means training. In this case, mental training. Okay, so yogic direct perceiver means a direct perceiver, a mind that directly perceives something that is developed on the basis of mental training. In other words, meditation. And it is a direct mind, non-conceptual, that is a union of calm abiding and special insight. A union of calm abiding and special insight. Calm abiding means shamatha, and special insight, vipassana. So now, whatever idea you have of vipassana, let it go for the time being. Because the word vipassana is explained in different ways, which is fine, but for this context here, it's explained differently. So anyway, in the end, phenomena are just imputed. I can use the word in different ways, and that's fine. But here in this context, I use it in a very specific way. So calm abiding and special insight, a union of the two. What does calm abiding mean? Calm abiding is a mental function. In other words, it's a mental factor. Mental factors, there's more explanation below, but mental factor just means a function of the mind. So far we've not talked so much about the different functions of a mind, but we've talked about the objects, we've talked about the cause that leads to an object, realized, not realized, correctly perceived, non-correctly. All right, that was one way of looking at it, one perspective. But now we can take one mind and separate out its function. So we all have concentration. All of you have concentrations. I mean, maybe not a very good concentration. It may just last for a few seconds. But if you didn't have concentration, you wouldn't be sitting here. You wouldn't be looking at me for more than a second. Okay? You wouldn't be able to read a book, watch a movie, eat your food, because you'll be forgetting what you're doing. So get up and do something else. So we all have concentration. However, our concentration is limited. It's good for certain things, but then unfortunately, because of our distraction, it doesn't last. So our concentration can be trained. The method we did today, it was a method of training our concentration. I mean, it was one of the effects that this meditation had. Train us in concentration. So the moment we train the natural concentration we already have, this concentration is given a different name. It's called meditative stabilization. Right? The mind has become stabler than before, independent on meditation. Meditative stabilization. Okay. So, concentration calm abiding is a mental function of concentration, and because it doesn't arise naturally, I mean, we're not born with it, most people aren't at least, so therefore, I mean, some people could have trained in the previous life, but looking at ordinary people like ourselves, so therefore, we don't have that kind of calm abiding, but we can train it. So calm abiding is a meditative stabilization that arose through meditation. But it's a very special meditative stabilization. Through a lot of training, one is able to concentrate on one object for at least how many hours? 4, very good. 4 hours. But it's not just that. There's something more than just being able to concentrate for 4 hours. You generate a special, what is called a pliancy or serviceability, a mental and physical serviceability. So it's a really funny thing to understand. Pliancy, Plianci. Can you say the Hebrew word? Yeah, like a flexibility, yes. Like a flexibility. So right now, we don't have a physical flexibility it's a special physical flexibility. I'm not talking about you being able to put your foot behind your head. I'm talking about you being able to sit in meditation without all this physical pain, or like the winds in the body being kind of blocked, and here it's uncomfortable, there, and you feel heavy, and just things just physically are not right. When you reach calm abiding, you reach a lightness of body. The body is suddenly, you can sit as long as you want, you don't have any aches. It's a special serviceability or flexibility of the body that you reach. Moreover, there's a mental flexibility. We wished, yeah. There's a mental flexibility, which again, your mind is not as heavy as like, let's just focus. It's like this effort. All that falls away. You gain a special mental flexibility. So a special function, physical and mental kind of flexibility arises, and moreover, you're able to stay for 4 hours on one object. When you have those three, mental, physical, pliancy or flexibility, plus the ability to stay on one object without distraction, having a very clear appearance of the object, then you've reached calm abiding. Can you imagine how helpful that is? Just to do your daily course. Anyway, daily, what do you call this course? No. Chores. So how helpful that is just to do your daily chores. But from a Buddhist perspective, it's like no way, if you don't have that, you cannot proceed to a certain level. But, as I said, we have this amazing mind. We just need to do it. It sounds so easy, but we just need to do it. Anyone can do it. It takes 6 months, they say. If we really take time off, we were to take time off for 6 months, and of course there's certain conditions that need to be there, but basically the scriptures describe 6 months. And there's some Westerners, as Thomas the Dalai Lama has recently been talking a lot about certain Westerners who've reached some levels, not all the way to calm abiding, but there's stages in between. There's actually 9 stages, and they've reached some high stages. There's quite a few Westerners, as Thomas starts mentioning those now during teachings. Anyway, so, therefore, having that state of calm abiding is extremely important. That is just one capacity of the mind, that stillness, to reach that state of stillness. At the same time, which means not literally at the same time, but also during other times of meditation, we need to also analyze something like emptiness, for example. We need to think about emptiness, get a better understanding of emptiness, as an example, or take something else that is slightly hidden, the subtle impermanence of phenomena. Anything that is slightly hidden. Okay? So, think about these slightly hidden phenomena with a different type of mind, not with a concentration. We cannot take this concentration and reflect on something initially. Why? Because right away we get distracted. So in order to gain calm abiding, we must choose an object such as the breath, the body of a Buddha, the sound that we did today. I mean, these are all objects, just observing one object, taking one object and focusing on it. If we start analyzing with concentration, the concentration will go right away. We'll be distracted. So during another time, we then take an analytical mind and start thinking about, well, whatever is the object, and really do it intensely. I mean, it's not enough once a week or once a day. It's probably like the entire day. Whenever we get the time, we think about it. And it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. We take all the reasonings, different reasons, and on the basis of that, we come to what's called an inferential understanding. We come to realize it. Seems impossible, but we can realize emptiness. We can realize subtle impermanence if we keep going, keep doing it, and apply the correct reasons, and go deeper and deeper, until one day, yes, I get it. That's what it is. Oh, now I understand. And no matter what anyone tells you, after that, you'll not be swayed from that understanding. But you can see these are different functions of the mind. One is this concentrated function, concentration. The other one is a function called wisdom. So it's really, you cannot do them simultaneously. You alternate them. So let's say from morning 7 to 8, right? You do concentration, you have breakfast. From 9 to 10, you do the analytical, right? And then again, you have a cup of tea, rest. Then you can do the concentration. Have some rest, you do analytical. So practically, it's like at different times you train different things. But still, there are different minds. You have the calm abiding over here, and there's wisdom, which is not called special insight. It's not called special insight or vipassana. The one is still called calm abiding, but this wisdom that realizes the object is just called a wisdom, a discriminative kind of mental factor. Now, what you want to do is bring the two together. Bring the two together. The function of concentration plus the function of analysis. You now bring them together. So those that they couldn't operate together at first, they had different objects, they could not arise at the same time. Now you bring that concentration plus the understanding that you've reached and try to put them together. Which basically means you have an awareness that realizes, let's say, emptiness, and then the mental function of concentration is also there, so that the mind is very focused on emptiness. Okay? So it's very focused on emptiness. At the same time, it's also analyzing emptiness, but in a very subtle way. In a very, very subtle way. So not like, is it this, is it that? That's distraction right away. So it's basically you put the two mental functions of concentration and realization of emptiness together, right? They operate together. They're now concomitant, which means they're associated. They have the same object. They operate parallel. Whatever appears to one, appears to the other. It's just a different mental function, but you bring them together, and it's described that this mind, it's actually one awareness with a function of concentration and the function of realizing its object. So this mind, this entity of mind, is like a still lake. Still because of the concentration, with a little fish moving underneath because of the analysis. Right? Sounds very beautiful and natural. Anyway, but that's the kind of the analysis that's given, the analogy for that type of mind, where you realize emptiness, but the mind is so still and so focused, right? So focused on the object. Now that is a union of the stillness, the calm abiding, and the wisdom, which is now called special insight or vipassana. It's only vipassana because it has that stillness, but at the same time realizes its object. Does that make sense? No? Well, it's hard. This is very hard. And I mean, I can recommend you to read, for example, Meditation on Emptiness. But most people hate that book. I mean, initially at least. Because it's so terse. It's an amazing book. So well researched. And Jeffrey Hopkins, one of his first books, but he really wrote that well. It's so terse, but to the point, and his research is really well. And he explains it beautifully. Meditation on Emptiness.
Many pages.
Meditation?
Many pages.
Oh, many pages, I know. But the part on special insight is actually not that much. So if you want to just read that. And it explains this. But it's hard because it's not what we do every day. I mean, calm abiding, all right. But bringing the two together, very difficult. But again, it's like this idea. Act locally, think globally. It's like think wider. This is what's possible. That's what we can do with the mind. So understanding it, we can already move in that direction because training calm abiding, and at other times, think about emptiness. It's all the preparation for that. Why not? Why not do that? Okay? So to start knowing where we need to go, and then eventually we can bring those two more and more together.
But you said one is shamatha and one concentration.
There are different mental factors.
No.
Oh, sorry. No. One is shamatha. No. Shamatha. You see, what I said was, it's concentration that has been enhanced to a degree that now we don't just call it concentration, but calm abiding. That is one mental function. And then you have wisdom that is not just mere wisdom, but wisdom that has been so enhanced that now, in combination with wisdom, with the concentration, with the calm abiding, it is called special insight. So you basically have two functions, concentration and wisdom, which because of their enhanced nature and them cooperating, they're not just called mere concentration or mere wisdom, they are called calm abiding or shamatha and special insight. Right? Yeah. So not that one is shamatha, one is concentration. No. One is the continuum of concentration is concentration, but a special one, and the other one is wisdom, but a special one, brought together. Okay, yes?
So, would you say that actually, as if three levels, that first you concentrate, then you use your concentration in order to understand the subject, and then you concentrate on the subject after you understood it?
Similar. I mean, stages, you can put many stages there. But yes, first you have concentration. You take an object that is not hidden. Right? The breath. Then, at some other time, you take an object that is hidden. You analyze that. Then, you take the concentration plus what you've understood, and you bring the two together. So with a very focused mind, you understand the object. I mean, it seems impossible right now, but that's what the mind can do. It's again something that the scriptures describe. We can only take it on faith, but it's totally possible. So, that is a union of calm abiding and special insight. So special insight, vipassana, never goes without shamatha. Shamatha can be there without special insight, because initially all we have is shamatha. But then once you put the two together, that wisdom aspect is called vipassana, and along with it comes that special concentration, which is shamatha, or calm abiding. So that's a union. Now, that is still not a yogic direct perceiver. It's still conceptual. It's amazing. Oh, if I just had that for just a day, I'd be so grateful. But no, it's just conceptual. Now, it is conceptual about through training, the generic image that we have of the emptiness. Let's say it's like you have a union, or it's called a meditative stabilization, that is a union of calm abiding and special insight. That's the term. So it's really like the calm abiding it's like the meditative stabilization refers to the calm abiding. So the meditative stabilization, that is a union of calm abiding, because it itself is calm abiding, that comes together with special insight. Right? The words are a little weird. I prefer to say just a union of calm abiding and special insight. But the term in Tibetan is actually a meditative stabilization, which is a union of calm abiding and special insight. That conceptually understands, let's say, emptiness. Okay? So now one needs to train more and more and more until there is a direct perception of emptiness. It's actually possible that the generic image, the image we have of the object, we can train ourselves to overcome that object by becoming more and more familiar. So right now, we just have that image, that kind of idea of emptiness, which allows us to get at emptiness, understand it. But eventually we can experience the way we experienced the chocolate this morning, directly. Now again, we go, oh, I don't have an experience of that. Doesn't mean it's not the case. Right? It's just a matter of training it, and then it's possible. We could do that with chocolate, actually. It's just no point. What's the point? We realize it with our tongue consciousness, then we realize it conceptually, then we meditate on chocolate, until we get a direct mental perception of chocolate. What's the point? What a waste of time. We don't do it. But we do it with more hidden phenomena that really count. Why? Because not understanding them causes us so many problems. Example for what?
For the others. The non-chocolate and the real problem.
The hidden phenomena.
Oh, for example, the lack of inherent existence of phenomena. That is something, understanding that, the lack of inherent existence, the lack of objective existence.
That's a concept. It's not a phenomenon.
Wait, okay. The lack of Barack Obama on this table, is that a phenomenon? The absence of Barack Obama on this table.
That's a phenomenon.
That's a phenomenon. Okay, because Barack Obama...
It's a real one.
Okay, Barack Obama doesn't sit on this table, right? Okay. The lack of you being a woman is real, right? It's a phenomenon, because you're not a woman. Right? Okay. If you also don't exist inherently, then the lack of inherent existence is a phenomenon. Do you exist inherently, objectively?
No.
Therefore, you lack inherent existence. It's a phenomenon.
It's a phenomena and a concept, I think.
So the lack of a Barack Obama on this table is also a concept?
Well, that's
It's both an absence. It's just an absence of something that's never been there. We're just spelling it out. A concept. What is a concept? A concept kind of means idea. It's actually a mental image. But that's not this.
The lack of Obama sitting on your table is...
It exists. You see, this is something weird. This is something where I go again, well, unless we're a little used to this, we don't speak in negatives so much. So Buddhism stresses negations a lot. I mean, we have negatives. Like a person who had cancer previously and now is cured of the cancer, it's a cancer-free person. It's an absence of cancer. So therefore we call that person a healthy person. We usually give it a positive, affirmative name. But really what it means, a healthy person, if now they're healthy, is because they overcame, there's the lack of cancer. The lack of cancer exists in that person's body. So likewise, we can say we overcome, for example, anger. Let's say you've overcome your anger for good. So now there's a new phenomenon with you, which is the lack of your anger. Right? You're free from anger. You've reached the freedom from anger. Now, with inherent existence, it's a little different because with the cancer was there before, now it's gone for good. The anger was there before, now it's gone for good. With inherent existence, it was never there. And nothing ever existed inherently. Phenomena don't exist objectively, independently. We only think they do. So, the lack of phenomena existing inherently, well, that's a fact. That's how phenomena exist. They don't exist. They're free from inherent existence. That's a phenomenon. Just as this table is free from Barack Obama sitting on top of it. Right? So, this is something we can understand. This is something we can understand. If we don't understand it, if we perceive inherent existence, we're in a lot of trouble. Right? I think, honestly, I think I exist inherently. And my inherently existent I is, I'm really sorry, but a little bit more important than yours. Honestly. I'm the center of the universe. Right? My happiness is more important. I'm more attached to this I. So because I have this perception of an I, therefore I'm a little bit more important. If someone harms me, I have a reason to be angry. If someone harms someone else, I don't care. I can still like them. So all my problems basically arise from perceiving myself to be objectively inherently existent there. So how can I solve my problems? By understanding the opposite, the absence of such inherent existence. It was never there in the first place. I just believed it to be there. Okay? And understanding this is so hard because I'm the sponge of my misperception. I'm full. It's like everything. It's in some way is controlling my actions. It's to a degree that everything appears to exist inherently. Even now, I can't even, just my direct eye consciousness, which perceives phenomena, purely chocolate, everything, even that is diluted now. It's contaminated by the appearance of inherent existence. This is how far it went. Can't be underestimated. That's why there's no quick fix.
Inherent existence.
I know, it's a stupid word. What's the Hebrew word for inherent?
It's not stupid. But
No, I mean, I'm saying stupid, not stupid, but it's like an English translation that doesn't really, I mean, it's very limited.
Even in Hebrew it's like this.
It's like, okay.
We say it from its own side.
From its own side. I mean, I shouldn't say it's a stupid word. It's a limited word. It's limited.
It's almost an oxymoron. It's like if it's inherent, it can't be non-existent.
Okay, you see, we're very limited here with words because we're trying to explain something we've never previously explained. So there really isn't a word for it. We just borrow a word. Oh, this person is inherently wonderful. We say that. Oh, they're so inherently this, that, or the other. But we now, in ordinary language, I mean, Venerable Jitsu Maten Pamo, I mean, I've heard some teaching, I've listened to some teachings of hers, and she says, oh, it's intrinsically this, intrinsically that. So she doesn't mean really like in the context of like ultimately, like inherently. She doesn't mean that. She just uses the word the way it's used in ordinary language. And I'm sure in Hebrew you use it to say something is inherently this, inherently is that. It's not like you were raised by your parents, oh, this word means this doesn't exist. Right? It's not part of our... Anyway, so we need to use these words. But the problem is here we don't have the time to go into this. But it's basically the idea, this will be part of the third course, where the idea is when we look for objects, if we really look for where's the cup, what is this cup, how does it really exist, is there a cup that can be found independent of its parts and so forth, we don't find something. If we were to find something, then it would inherently exist. The I feels so solidly here and it feels it's the most important thing in the world. It makes me so much superior to everyone else, right? The sense of an I and the sense of others. It's kind of intrinsic otherness over there and we're so separate. All that is just made up by the mind. But nevertheless, this is how I perceive phenomena to exist. And actually they don't exist that way. They're absent. They lack that true existence, that solid, concrete existence. But that's for a lack of better words. There are no better words. We have to borrow them from the English. Anyway, I hope you get some understanding. And unfortunately, I need to get back to the mind to continue with this. But here, the topic is more with the mind that perceives such. So how can we develop such a mind? So it's really complicated. It's not easy. There's no quick fix. Because not only do we have to deal with the object that is so difficult to understand, we have to deal with how to get to an understanding. What are the different minds? But basically the idea is that even though it's so complicated, it is possible to understand it conceptually, and then moreover, train the ability of concentrating and focusing, so now we have a laser-sharp mind that understands that emptiness. And on top of that, not just does it understands it, but it also understands it directly now. That is a yogic direct perceiver. Does that make sense? It's a yogic direct perceiver is a mental consciousness that directly perceives the emptiness in a very focused fashion. Because not only does it realize the object, it also does so with a very focused mind.
Can I ask about that? First, when you said you refer to somebody who has already realized it and therefore doesn't move from that state, or is something that is, or is it just a glimpse on the inside, it's something that falls back and forth?
I'll explain this now. Just a second. Can you keep the questions towards the end? Because unless it's a clarification, I'll probably go off a little bit. So if you can wait, maybe it'll be answered on the way. Okay, so what I would like to do now is, and this I know it's difficult, so I don't expect you to totally understand it, but I want to put it in the context of where it's important, yogic direct perceivers. And I said I would like to explain you the Hinayana and the Mahayana path. Okay? So yogic direct perceivers, without those, you cannot proceed on a Hinayana or Mahayana path. And I use the word Hinayana on purpose here. Don't get hung up on the meaning of Hinayana. It's called fundamental vehicle, whatever it's called. But it describes something specific. It describes a method that leads us to a specific goal. A specific goal. And I said I would give you an example, like I would give you a Swiss example. I don't know, I've been thinking about this a lot. And I think of getting towards liberation or getting to enlightenment, it's similar to climbing a mountain. It's difficult, like climbing a mountain. I mean, the gravity is that which keeps us from being able to go. What is it that keeps us from becoming liberated or enlightened? It's obstructions. Obstructions or obscurations. Afflictive obscurations or cognitive obscurations. That is like the gravity of the earth. Okay? So, and that which takes us there is like a Swiss cable car. So the cable car is like the path. It's like the